Have you ever heard of a story where an act of kindness, done in silence with no expectation of reward, completely turned a person's destiny around? Stay with me until the end, because this one will leave your heart trembling up. It's about a young nurse who gave her soul to care for a man who never even opened his eye as a broken bar until one day, when everything changed. Amelia was just 24, fresh out of nursing school, carrying both her stethoscope and the weight of her own family's struggles. Her father's small business had collapsed, her mother was sick, and her younger brother depended on her paycheck to keep studying. Life hadn't been fair, but Amelia's heart was larger than her hardships. She worked night shifts at the city's biggest hospital, a place where the wealthy and the forgotten both lay side by side, stripped of their differences by illness. It was there she was assigned to the coma ward, where silence was the loudest sound. Machines beeped, drips fell, and hope often felt like a ghost wandering between beds. But one patient stood out, Mr. Adrian Cole. Adrian wasn't just another patient, he was a millionaire, the owner of half the real estate in the city, a man who once graced magazine covers and lived behind the tinted glass of black cars. Now he lay still, tubes in his veins, his body unmoving for nearly 2 years after a terrible car accident. Many whispered that he'd never return, that his life was over even if his heart still beat. To Amelia, though, he wasn't a millionaire, he was simply a man who needed care. Every evening, she walked into his room, where expensive flowers rotted in crystal vases and family photos collected dust. His relatives rarely came, yet too busy arguing over his wealth and waiting for his last breath. Amelia was the only constant. She cleaned his wounds, adjusted his blankets, massaged his stiff hands, and yes, she even bathed him with gentleness as though he could feel every touch. "Good evening, Mr. Cole," she would whisper. "It's me again. Another day done, and you're still fighting." She told him stories he never answered, about her mother's smile when her fever broke, about her brother passing an exam, about the way she sometimes cried in the bathroom so no one could see. And though his lips never moved, she imagined he was listening. Somewhere deep inside that silence, days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Amelia grew attached. She began to see Adrian not as a lifeless patient but as a silent friend, someone who kept her secret safe. Sometimes, while combing his hair, she'd say, "You don't know it, but you've kept me sane, Mr. Cole. Maybe one day, you'll open your eyes and tell me your secrets too." Then, one stormy night, the miracle happened. As Amelia leaned over to adjust his fore, she felt his fingers twitch. At first, she thought it was her imagination. A coma patient sometimes moved involuntarily. But then she heard it, a hoarse, broken whisper. "Whoa, broken bar area, broken bar you?" Her heart froze. She turned, and for the first time, Adrian's piercing grey eyes, long hidden behind shut lids, were staring at her. Alive, aware. Tears blurred Amelia's vision. "I'm your nurse," she whispered, unable to believe it herself. "You've been asleep for a very long time." From that night onward, recovery began. The doctors called it miraculous, beyond science, but Adrian himself kept asking for one persona, not his relatives, not his lawyers, not the board members of his empire. He wanted Amelia. As he relearned to speak, to walk, to hold a spoon, he clung to her presence like air. And one evening, when he could finally sit up, he confessed, "I don't remember faces, Amelia. Not my family's, not my friends, but I remember a voice. Your voice. It kept pulling me back from the dark. You saved me." For Amelia, it was overwhelming. She hadn't done it for recognition. She hadn't bathed him, talked to him, or stayed by his side because of who he was. She did it because that was her nature, to care without asking for anything in return. But Adrian wasn't a man to forget debts, and this debt was not of money, it was of life. As months passed, he grew stronger, and with every step, he wanted to give back. He discovered Amelia's struggles, her mother's illness, her family's drowning finances. Quietly, he arranged for her brother's education, her mother's treatment, and one day he handed her a letter of admission to the most prestigious nursing fellowship in Europe, fully funded. Amelia's hands trembled. "Why would you do this for me?" she asked. Adrian smiled, not as the millionaire the world knew, but as the man reborn by her kindness. "Because when I had nothing and no power, no voice, No controller. You treated me like I was still human. You gave me dignity when no one else cared. Amelia, you didn't just wake me from a coma, a broken bar, you woke me to life again. The bond between them grew into something deeper, something neither wealth nor circumstance could define. Some called it gratitude, others whispered love, but Amelia knew it was something pure, a connection born in silence, nurtured by compassion, and sealed by fate. By the end of that year, Adrian walked out of the hospital hand in hand with the nurse who had never left his side. The world gasped at the millionaire's miracle recovery, but the real miracle wasn't in his survival, it was in the way two lives, one powerful and one struggling, intertwined to heal each other.